and welcome to Season 2 of the NGO Whisperer Show. My name is Carolyne Opinde. I am the founder of the NGO Whisperer. We are a consulting business that provides technical support to nonprofits so they can successfully impact people's lives. Joining us today from Nairobi, Kenya is Nixon Nyadiero Sekoh. Nixon is the Corporate Affairs Manager at the Non-governmental Organization Coordination Board in Kenya. Nixon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are honored, we are privileged to have you today, a representative of the Non-governmental Organization Coordination Board based in Kenya, joining us. And to start us off, Nixon, when was the NGO Coordination Board founded and what is its main mission in Kenya?
Thank you very much, Caroline. The NGO Coordination Board was created by an Act of Parliament, which is the NGOs Coordination Act, Cap 19 of 1990. And it was operationalized in 1992. Okay? So the main purpose of the board is to register, coordinate, facilitate, and harmonize NGO activities in Kenya.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What services do you offer to nonprofits in Kenya?
Quite a number of services. Number one is we register them. We give them licenses to operate. And once we have registered you, then we have post-registration services. NGOs need to open an account. NGOs need recommendation letters to operate in the county governments. NGOs need recommendation letters to donors. NGOs need capacity building, which again we are taking very seriously at the moment, considering what's going on in the sector. And basically, we just a one-stop shop for NGO services in Kenya. I think that would be the best way to put it.
Oh, wonderful. I know there are specific things that you do with NGOs to build their capacity through the Institute of Charity Management. One of the things that I have found out working in the NGO sector, or the nonprofit sector as it is known in many other countries around the world, is nonprofits do good in the society, in the communities that they operate in. However, they constantly need capacity development to be able to deliver services more efficiently and more effective. With the NGO Coordination Board in Kenya, I know you provide a lot of capacity building support to nonprofits, smaller and even larger organizations, regardless of their size. So could you walk us through the process of capacity building from the time a nonprofit is contacted to when they receive the services that you offer in terms of capacity building?
I think before I answer that, let me just start from summaries. That one is as the NGO Coordination Board, we prepare something called the annual NGO Sector Report. Okay? So the annual NGO Sector Report is a document that, well-researched document that talks about NGO contribution to the economy during a particular year. So for the year 2018-2019, our data shows that NGOs contributed a total of 160 billion Kenyan shillings towards the economy. And that was about 3,000 out of the 11,000 organizations that we have registered. So just that amount alone shows you that as government, as the NGO Coordination Board, we greatly appreciate what NGOs are doing in terms of uplifting the living standards of our people. And we also recognize the fact that NGOs are more or less our partners, and therefore we our job to capacity, it's our responsibility to capacity build them in terms of one, which is very key, is resource mobilization. Because again, the last few years I've witnessed a decline in terms of NGOs receiving money from the traditional donors. The other issue is governance, which is very important, and because at times it's because of NGOs just don't know that the way they're supposed to run themselves. Yeah. For example, they need to know the difference between the functions of the board and the functions of management. What are the roles of a chairman, the roles of a treasurer, the roles of a secretary, the roles of the chief executive and the chief executive staff in terms of running of the organizations. We also do a lot of capacity building in terms of accounting. We partner with other institutions that offer accounting training for NGOs, so that NGOs are able to report with according to international standards. But key now is resource mobilization and governance.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And as you know, here at the NGO Whisperer, we also offer support to nonprofits, even though it's from a consulting type of service that we offer. In terms of resource mobilization, governance, and the financial management support that you provide to nonprofits or NGOs in Kenya, oftentimes you find that different NGOs have different needs. How do you meet the needs of this organization through your capacity building? Because you might find that in the room there are new NGOs, there are other smaller NGOs, and sometimes you have somewhat mid-sized NGOs that need support. How do you categorize? Do you divide them by size or their needs? How do you go about with your trainings?
It's a very interesting question, and I think one of the things we do is also according to size and also according to need, because being the custodians of the information on NGOs in the country, we are able to look at the file and allude to the fact that, you see, this NGO is facing governance problems, or this NGO has issues between the board and the management. But most interesting is the fact that the international NGOs, for example, they always have this mindset that they are controlled from their headquarters, without realizing that the registration is in Kenya is independent of their headquarters, and therefore of late we have trained a lot of international NGOs on encouraging them to have local boards, and training them on what the role of the body is as far as the running of that NGO is concerned, and the responsibilities of the board members. So that's for international NGOs. And also to a small extent, we also talk, which I teach, is resource mobilization. So again, we also just touch base on resource mobilization. So we do it, that is one is we do it according to need. Yeah. Number two is also, we look at the fact that there are some NGOs that cannot afford the services that we are offering. So they can't train their whole board and they can't train their management. So we organize for meetings that will include everyone. So it gives a chance for the other smaller NGOs to participate. But it's also worth noting that these trainings are not just done in Nairobi. No, the trainings are done in Mombasa, the trainings are done in Kisumu, the trainings are done we have done a training in Eldoret, we have done trainings in Naivasha, we have done trainings in Nakuru. So we just ensure that where there is an NGO presence, we strive to take capacity building training workshops there.
Wonderful. Just to take you back to two key points that you have mentioned. I would like you to go deeper into them. I know resource mobilization is a great need among many nonprofits. And I know you are one of the trainers who provide this specific module on resource mobilization. Now, looking at the different NGOs that you are providing support to, what would you say is the biggest area of need when it comes to resource mobilization? Because resource mobilization is such a wide topic. There is different types of raising funds. There is technical writing and grant writing and so on and so forth, all the way to developing or organizing events to raise funds for organizations. So as you look at resource mobilization as a comprehensive topic, what areas of need are greatest among the nonprofits that you work with?
I think you brought in a very important aspect of resource mobilization, because people always, the NGOs, most of the local NGOs in Africa tend to think of resource mobilization in terms of cash. Yet the resource mobilization is divided and categorized in very many other aspects. What we have encouraged NGOs to do is, one, to seek for partnership and collaboration, yeah, with private sector and the UN bodies and other international NGOs. Again, we're also encouraging NGOs to come in together as consortiums, yeah, so that they are able to speak with a louder voice. You know, you're from Kenya, me and you happen to come from the same place.
Yeah.
You know, we always say, you know, until the lion tells the story, the glory will always go to the hunter. And therefore, what we've discovered about NGOs in Kenya, and also I'll just talk about the East African region, is they don't tell their stories. Yeah, they don't tell their stories. And therefore, donors out there, or people who are willing to fund out there, really don't know who they are funding. And therefore, we are encouraging a lot of storytelling now in terms of, you know, what not just your impact, you know, but see what does educating a guard, for example, mean, you know, to the whole society. So, you know, it's a spectrum that starts from, you know, taking her, not just taking her to school. You're also impacting other knowledge and skills, yeah, on the girl that would help her, yeah, once she's out of school. And you know what we're doing is we're not just training you to be educated. No. We are encouraging you to come from a place where you are employed to a place where you are deployed. So you deploy yourself. If you don't get employment, then you have a skill that can enable you to start a business and make you continue with your livelihood.
That is quite interesting, thinking of how you are building capacity of nonprofits and people or individuals working in nonprofits. You're giving them skills, like you said, with resource mobilization. I find it that quite fascinating that you're helping them to be in a position where if they are no longer working in the nonprofit sector, that they could utilize those skills to start a business or to get into other jobs or other areas of economic income generation and so on and so forth. I find that quite fascinating, because most of the time when people provide training to nonprofits, it's usually very narrow-minded. It's like, this is training specific for nonprofits, and you know, it's not really applicable elsewhere. But I like what you do because it's broader thinking. And I'm very proud to be Kenyan and to hear that this is what is happening in the NGO sector in Kenya. Now, going into, you mentioned something about the international NGOs are required by law in Kenya to have a local board in the country. Would you please share with our viewers Why is it so important to have local board members as opposed to having them being run from overseas or from whatever countries that they were originally founded or from their home countries?
We understand that NGO, in an international NGO that is coming to register in Kenya, is registered in another country. That we respect. We are also aware that, you know, an international NGO again also sends or funds the local affiliate registered in Kenya. So we are not in any way saying that you cannot, an NGO that is registered in Kenya cannot have a member of the board who does not reside in Kenya. But we want to say that 3/4 of those members must be Kenyan citizens or must be residing in Kenya.
That is wonderful, and it brings in the sense of ownership, local ownership, local leadership to address issues that are happening locally in the country. And you and I know that when you engage local people and they have ownership of the program, starting from the board to the leadership, meaning the senior management team, the executive directors, when you have local people leading great programs, regardless of whether it is an international non-profit or a CBO, as you referred to, which are community-based organizations, it makes sense to have local people because they have the context of the issues that they face. It goes beyond just reading reports to actually having experienced some of the difficulties or the problems that the NGO or non-profits or CBOs, which are community-based organizations, are solving in the community.
And I also just want to add to that, you know, the leadership of the NGOs Coordination Board. You know, we have a chairman, Gishira Kibara, and the executive director, Mutuman Kanata. They have been very key, being NGO operatives before. They have been very key in steering the NGO Coordination Board to a place where we are actually facilitators of NGO work. So the leadership has ensured that NGOs receive nothing but the best that will enable them work to the optimum.
It's really wonderful to know that the leadership is taking full responsibility to ensure quality services are provided to the non-profit sector, to even smaller community-based organizations and self-help groups which are registered as non-profit organizations in Kenya. Now, as we go deeper into the work that you provide under the Institute of Charity Management, I would like us to look at the how does a non-profit become a beneficiary of your training? Are there costs that come with these types of trainings or capacity building sessions that you hold? And if they're so, what are the ranges? Are they categorized, you know, because sometimes when you do trainings, you have full access, and then for others, you might have access to webinars and so on and so forth. So I am curious to know, what costs do these capacity building sessions require from the nonprofits?
Good question once again. One is the Institute of Charity Management is also a resource mobilization tool for the NGOs Coordination Board. So the money that we raise from the training, again, just goes back, is plowed back and helps us into day-to-day operations of our organization. And in terms of costs, it actually depends. Yeah, I can't say that we have a fixed cost because it depends again from organization to organization. As I said earlier, there are organizations that have very little money, and the organizations, I wouldn't say they have a lot of money, but they have money for capacity building, and the organizations that don't have money for capacity building. So we are always very careful that we don't leave others out, especially the local organizations, and build the capacity of organizations that are already well funded. Let me give you an example. In January, at the end of January of 2020, we held an event called the NGOs Week. Okay? So the NGOs Week is an annual event that brings together government, private sector, donor agencies, development partners, the county government, local and international NGOs, academic institutions, and the general public. Yeah, so they can come together and discuss issues affecting the NGO sector during that particular period. And for this year, there was a lot of emphasis on two issues: on governance and resource mobilization. And NGOs were of the view that, you know, there are instances where they don't think that they are receiving a lot of support from government. But then, as government, you know, our job is to facilitate and ensure that the operating environment for them is okay. But then came in the private sector, and the private sector came and said, you know what, guys, we also have foundations, yeah, that are more or less doing what you as NGOs are doing, but we just don't understand you as NGOs, how you operate. And therefore, that was a very good opportunity where we brought the private sector and NGOs, and especially local NGOs, to see how they can work together. And I can assure you, it is amazing what has happened between January and June, even considering the fact that that there is COVID. You know, organizations, private sector organizations, and local NGOs have partnered and are working smoothly in assisting government address the whole issue of COVID.
And that takes us to the next question, and you've answered part of it, but I'm going to ask it so you can elaborate further. What support have you, as the NGO Coordination Body, provided to nonprofits in Kenya, especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic? Also thinking a few months ago, Kenya had locust infestation that affected the work of many nonprofits in different counties around the country, and also in times of floods, such as those that we had in the western part and the Rift Valley area of Kenya. Please share with us what support you give in terms of humanitarian support or emergency response, or even financial recovery processes that you have.
As I said earlier, for the NGO Coordination Board, our job is to facilitate. Yeah. So in the COVID era, what we have done together with Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Pipeline has been providing free sanitizers. So we have collected sanitizers and distributed them to NGOs. So NGOs again are distributing the sanitizers to the local population. One very important aspect that we are in now is the Lake Region Economic Bloc, known as LREB, of which I represent the NGO board in that committee. Now the LREB it constitutes of about 12 counties in the western part of Kenya that constitutes nearly a third, you know, of the population that is in Kenya, and that again is most NGOs operate in that particular area. So what we have done is we have encouraged NGOs to work together with government, so that when we are addressing the issues of COVID, they are done from a central point. We understand that NGOs being on the ground at times have much better info and much better access, yeah, and much better understanding of the communities they work in. So you know, when we combine that with what government does and with what private sector does, then we have a very harmonious working relationship. Number two is in the COVID disaster, National COVID Disaster Management Committee. There are also NGOs that are advising that committee. For example, one very important organization there has been AMREF, in terms of just providing information on health related issues. So ours has been encouraging partnership and collaboration between all the various development stakeholders in addressing COVID. And again, very importantly is, during the COVID the COVID season 1 is we had a curfew, yeah, that started from 7 and from 7 to 5, and then again they changed it now. It starts from 9 to 4. But during this particular period, there are organizations that offer essential services, who are NGOs. So we made sure that with the Ministry of Interior, they were given permission to operate outside curfew hours and to travel in and out of Nairobi to offer services to the people who required them.
Thank you so much for sharing information on how different sectors, that is the private sector, the government, as well as the non-profit sector, have come together to provide support to organizations. I am also aware that you have been providing or working with NGOs, coordinating the distribution of water, sanitation, and hygiene equipment, as well as increasing access to just having water in communities by having tanks. Share with us, give examples of places where you have been involved with different corporate organizations to do this.
There are NGOs that have done a very good job, yeah, in terms of helping people who are in informal settlements. There's an organization called Shofco that works in the biggest slum in Kenya. It's called Kibera. So Shofco has provided water. They have provided sanitizers. They continue to provide soap, and they have provided tanks in places that you would never before have found those things. And two, Shofco has been at the forefront of educating people living in informal settlements on what COVID is and the effects of COVID. So they have had a very positive impact as far as COVID is concerned. And then number two, there's an organization that is called Give Directly, which is headquartered in the United States, but has a local office there. What they have been doing is they do a lot of livelihood, cash transfers, they empower young people by providing them with capital to start a business. And it is amazing what they did before COVID, what they have done during the COVID period, and the plans that they have. They are working very, very closely with government. And why I'm speaking so passionately about this is actually also grew up in Mathare, which is an informal settlement in Nairobi, and it is crime infested, drug infested, and it's associated with a lot of bad things. But then through the work of NGOs, a lot of good things have happened. They have changed lives of young people. They have changed lives of single mothers. They have changed lives. In fact, the NGOs that are addressing issues of widowers, because there's always a lot of concentration on widows. So there's a lot that NGOs are doing in Kenya. And as I said before, as government, we greatly appreciate what NGOs are doing. And we will always look to NGOs as partners in uplifting the living standards of Kenyans.
Wonderful. I have had so many great stories and success stories of how nonprofits are really supporting communities in this time of COVID-19 pandemic, and not just now, also with the locust infestation, as well as the recent floods in areas like Kisumu, in Ahero area, and also West Pokot in the Rift Valley area. So as we come to the end of our session today, I would like to look at a very important component, which is also very close to my heart, which is the measuring of impact of the work that you do. It is great when you do great work, but it's even better when, or greater, when you can measure what you have done and prepare for future program improvement, quality assurance, and to make the program better. What processes do you have in place to support nonprofits to measure their impact and performance better?
Well, interesting questions, and have an interesting answer. Is at the end of every financial year, NGOs are required by law to submit their annual returns. Now, the annual returns is not just financial statements, but you know it includes narratives, the narrative of what they have done. And as I said earlier, you know, according to our reports for the year 2018-2019, NGOs contributed a total of 160 billion Kenyan shillings towards the economy. So the fact that I think in Africa we are the only people who are doing it. Kenya is the only country that is able to produce that report, and that report informs government, informs donors, informs development partners, informs academia, and any other development stakeholder of the role played by NGOs in improving the living standards of Kenyans. That's number one. Number two, we are a facilitator. As I said, we are a facilitator, and it's very important for us to create an environment where NGOs can thrive. Yeah? Where you don't have to look over your shoulder. Yeah? You know that if I go into this community through the NGO board, I will talk to the county commissioner or the deputy county commissioner. I will tell him or her this is what we are doing, and you know the NGO board we are always encouraging NGOs to be part of the county government's development committee, so that they can also align their activities to the activities of the county governments. And all this is always just for the reason that to achieve better results. Because again, if we work, if you want to run faster, run alone. But if you want to run further, run together. And that's what just what we're encouraging. And that's what I encourage NGOs in Africa to do. That we, especially in these times of COVID, partnership and collaboration is key. Working on your own, you'll not have the desired impact.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It is really important that non-profits are able to be accountable to a body, and different countries manage it differently. And I am very proud of what you are doing in Kenya as the NGO coordination body, requiring non-profits to report not just on the financial and the legal matters, but also on the impact of their work through development of narrative reports, which is very critical and very important to measure progress. For anyone who is interested to read the most recent annual report from the NGO Coordination Board in Kenya, we will have the links available for you. And if you reach out to us or to Mr. Nixon, he will send it to you directly. So we thank you so much, Nixon, for the amazing information that you have shared with us. And to anyone out there who is listening, we invite you to engage with us to learn more. And for anyone who is outside of Kenya, I know your mandate is to support Kenya, but I also know that you have been sharing lessons with another NGO coordination body outside Kenya. Would you share with us experiences that you've had with other coordination bodies?
We have shared our experiences with Uganda. We have shared our experiences with South Africa. We have shared experiences also with Tanzania, South Sudan, Malawi, and Zambia, who very interestingly are modeling their NGO laws similar to what we have in Kenya. But most interesting is that they actually find it difficult to believe that, that our job that we facilitate, as government, we facilitate the work of NGOs in Kenya. And we are now seeing, recently we just hosted the NGO board members from South Africa. And they were amazed at how we work and how we generate our reports and how we capacity build NGOs, and the fact that NGOs can call us for meetings and to give them advice. So again, Kenya, they always say that we always pave the way, we always show the way, lead the way in Africa. So as we continue leading the way in Africa, we are telling NGOs and other NGO regulators in Africa that partnership and collaboration and encouraging the local private sector to fund NGOs, encouraging local resource mobilization, encouraging volunteerism, local volunteerism, because there's a very interesting group in this country called millennials. And if there's a group that, let me just divert a little bit, Carol, allow me to do this because I think this is very important. And if there's a group in this country that gives money, and they are always they're always on social media or on the web, is the millennials. And I think it has reached a point where we should, as a continent, we should make use of the millennials because their tech savvy ability and their generosity is amazing. I also want to add that COVID has taught us a lesson that we must learn now to do things electronically through social media platforms. So I really encourage NGOs to tell their stories on social media. They can tell their stories on Facebook, they can tell their stories on Twitter, they can tell their stories on LinkedIn, and many on YouTube, and maybe so that's the only way where people now are at home. So people have a lot of time, to look at to go to the web and look at what's going on. And it's very easy when you have a presence, when you have a strong social media presence, for people for people in the world just to know what you're doing. So I encourage local NGOs to invest properly on social media, and also invest properly on resource mobilizers. Those are a very, very critical group. But the millennials in our country, especially Kenya, I can talk because I've seen what the millennials are doing. We as a country, we are underutilizing that resource, that human resource. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all this important information. And in your parting shot, just to reiterate, is to thank every Kenyan millennial or young person in Kenya who is making a difference in their communities. We appreciate you, and we want you to continue to do the good work in your community as you impact lives of people within your community and across the country. To every nonprofit that is seeking support with branding and marketing and support that they may need to be visible internationally, we are here to support you. The NGO Whisperer Show, the NGO Whisperer magazine, which is right there, is here for you, and we are happy to tell your stories to our audience, not just in Kenya, not just in Africa, but around the world. Indeed, it has been an honor. It has been a pleasure to have you, Nixon Nyadiero Sekoh, the Corporate Affairs Manager at the NGO Coordination Board in Kenya, joining us today. Nixon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of this show, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, the NGO Whisperer channel on YouTube, and to share it with nonprofits, community-based organizations that you know of or that are close to your heart, because it's all about connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives.